how long had you been experiencing
I see,
depression at that point?
depression.
Is it something you've had your whole life, or
No, I would say fairly late in life, which is to say maybe around 24, 25 before I started properly understanding it as depression. So that's a little bit later than some people. A lot of adolescents are the first people to experience it, but I think it presented differently. And I've gone through a bunch of different diagnoses about major depressive episode and bipolar type 2, which is much more cyclical depression. The periods are shorter. And then instead of mania, you have what's called hypomania, which is just nothing to worry about. It's just like slight extroversion, but I don't know if that's what it is. To be honest, there's a fad right now where a lot of psychiatrists are diagnosing manic depressives or manic depression or bipolar, and especially bipolar type 2. And I believe that is because you are required to have that diagnosis in order to receive certain medications that work better than SSRIs. And SSRIs are used to treat depression, but they only work in about a third successfully in about a third of the population. I actually took a 23andMe test, gosh, like 9 years ago. And through an extension site called Prometheus, I found out that I had a less than likely aptitude of responding to SSRIs, which is extremely helpful. And I advise anybody listening interested in this stuff to do that because I saved so much time and so many side effects not fucking around with SSRIs and going straight to alternative therapies. I will say later, just because I'm a scientific person, I did try an SSRI. I
mm,
tried Lexapro just to see, and like I suspected, it didn't really respond to it. And so one of the things that happens with depression that's interesting is it makes people desperate or risk accepting, to put it in economics terms. And it's a wonderful thing because you don't have anything to lose. And I was seeking out a lot of things. I was seeking out ecstatic dance and Burning Man. And next on my list was acupuncture, which I never got around to trying, but I still retain that excitement around looking for therapies. And weirdly enough, like alternative therapies, like seeking them out is the first step towards healing depression because you have already made the decision to try and remove your pain as opposed to accepting it or identifying with it. So it's like the people who try psychedelics are within a very risk accepting population. And that's why oftentimes psychedelics are correlated with other things like Burning Man and I don't know, Reiki healing, energy work, essential oils, mumbo jumbo, what have you. There's a huge like a huge field of healing. Yeah.
so when you were 24, what was it that was happening? Put us a place and time in your life then. What was going on, and what was surfacing, I guess, from like a symptoms perspective that was causing you to take more action or actually seek out alternative treatments?
Sure. I was very unhappy. I had, you'll never guess this, but I was working at Fox Business Network, and that was in the Fox News cohort. And Fox News is not a fun place to work. What? I bet you've never heard that before. I was
There's a
working at
whole
Fox.
podcast we could do about you working there, by the way.
Yeah. Oh God. There were some lovely people there for sure, but it was a very toxic work environment. There wasn't even free coffee. I would hang around the green room and like essentially eat the scraps of people's food. It was so bad. Just, there was just a real sense of it's okay to take your emotions out on people underneath you because we're working in a very fast-paced environment and we need to get the work done. And
Mm-hmm.
it just fucked with my head. So I quit without having a job as a backup. But all I knew was that the one thing that had made me truly happy while I was at Fox was working at UCB. While I was taking classes at UCB and was later hired to be on a sketch comedy team there. And that made me truly happy. And so I left Fox. I left a relationship that was like the guy was perfect. He checked all the boxes. Jewish, Ivy League, very respectful. My parents would have been over the moon, but there was something missing. He couldn't quite understand emotions. I once asked him, what is the most complicated emotion you've ever felt? And he said, I once was full, but I kept wanting to eat. Not the best indication of a relationship with somebody who's depressed. Anyway, so I left that relationship. I left that job.
What were you doing at that job? At
I
Fox
was a
Business?
lowly production assistant. So I had been a personal assistant. I was so bad at being a personal assistant. I was so bad at it that they promoted me out of being a personal. My boss literally told me I was the world's worst personal assistant numerous times. Like, just one quick anecdote about why he was actually correct.
Yep.
The one thing that gave me joy working at Fox Business Network was leaving very detailed reviews on Amazon for things I'd bought. And I would do this all the time. And I bought this dress that was just like black with a white collar, and it looked great. And it was like $10 from China. So I decided to throw them a bone and write them a nice review. And I wrote this review saying, I look like a sexy Wednesday Addams. My gams look great. My thighs are thundering down the hall in this tight dress, and I'm feeling fine. Anyway, post, I get a little endorphin rush. I don't think about it. The end. Half an hour later, I get an email from my boss. My boss is a mustachioed, very severe old man who is a veteran news journalist. And he writes me an email and he says, have I been hacked? And underneath that message is a forwarded email from Amazon saying, you have just reviewed a dress. I had been logged in his Amazon account. So there's this 65-year-old veteran journalist man has posted, I look like a sexy Wednesday Addams. My gams look great. Thundering down the hall in this tight, beautiful dress. And I do what every production assistant should do. I wrote back being like, oh my God, yes, you've been hacked. I've heard about this hack. They're trying to scam you into buying the dress. I don't know. So I do, a scene from Hackers or something like that. I'm like, okay, I uploaded the codes. You're no longer hacked. I got into the mainframe and I just deleted my post. Anyway, so I was a very bad personal assistant, but I was very unhappy because it was like one of my first really significant, not one of my first significant failures. It was just another really big failure of mine. And I was wrenching myself at this point in time from a track towards an identity that I thought I should be, but I knew that I wasn't. And that wrenching was super painful. Mm-hmm. This is a whole 4 years later. I'm still in many ways recovering from that transition. Trump was elected. I'm disgusted by the political atmosphere. And I majored in politics. I used to love it. So all these things I used to love were abhorrent to me. So I went through a very early midlife crisis or a very late puberty. And the depression began. Yes.